One of the things I did during that summer for the recording, we were starting in progress a little bit. But the apologetic session that I did in 2017 on the origin of life, I spent a lot of that time just simply quoting evolutionists, biologists, scientists on the question of the origin of life. Because my view is, without the origin of life, I'm not sure how interested I am in the evolution of life. Unless you're proposing that God originated it and then directed some kind of evolutionary process, which is a version of something called theistic evolution, which is exactly that, a God-directed, as I understand it, a God-directed evolutionary process, which neither evolutionists nor Christians have a lot of respect for a number of reasons that don't matter now. But anyway, during that summer, I quoted from a lot of them. And I referenced this Simons Foundation and their proposal of their grant proposal looking to do research on the origin of life. And I characterized it a few weeks ago as, hey, we want to start a program with a grant to research the origin of life because we got nothing. So is there anybody out there that can help us research the origin of life? Which sounds like an exaggeration, but I finally found the quote. Put it up here. This is the quote from the Simons Foundation. Interestingly, the grant, of course, this is 10 years ago. So I went to the website and it's not there. It's a collaboration on the origins of life aimed to advance our understanding. The collaboration comprised, past tense, investigators, postdoctoral fellows, and so on from diverse fields. And then whose research addressed critical questions regarding origin of life. If you look at these critical questions, the critical questions, it turns out, and I presume that critical question means an unanswered question. That would be my guess. Got a really slow internet today. Good thing we're not going to use it much, except for right now when I want it. But here's the critical questions. What are the range of planets? Now they're looking at other planets, planetary environments, and habitability. And so what chemical processes shape the composition of asteroids and comets? Because the idea is that perhaps some of the materials needed for the origin of life came in on asteroids and comets or something like that. Basically, how did the atmosphere evolve into one that even could support life or be conducive to life? We talked about this before, that one of the big problems with the origin of life is that for the process of chemical evolution to happen and for these proteins that need to be created through chemical processes, in order for them to survive, you have to have a reducing atmosphere, which is to say no free oxygen. Because if you don't have a reducing atmosphere, these proteins get destroyed immediately. They will anyway in the soup, as I understand it, but you got to have a reducing atmosphere. And so that's the question, because there's no evidence that the environment on Earth was ever a reducing atmosphere, that it was ever free of, that it ever had no oxygen. There's no evidence of that. Here's the big one. What sort of chemistry led to the building blocks of biology? Well, if you have to ask the question, that sounds like you're starting from scratch right there to me. But that's a critical question to be answered. What sort of chemistry? It's not, you don't even know what the chemistry is. You can't even identify the chemistry that resulted in it. That's how I understand this. I don't know what an oligomer, it doesn't matter. More of the same, whatever this is. But you can see these, back to chemistry again. How did primitive cells assemble and replicate? Well, that is the question. Is that not the question? But if you're asking the question, then that means you don't have an answer. I don't know. They're looking at other planets now. Mars, a lot of hope in Mars. They're talking about, if you follow, I get them on my feed all the time because I start reading the articles and then you get more and more of them. So there's lots of talk about what we can learn about the origin of life on from Mars, which a lot of them, I think, view as a dead planet that used to be habitable to life. We'll see, because it has water and an atmosphere, some atmosphere. Anyway, so that's the situation. You know, this is a kind of a dead research thing here. It's past tense, you know, like I showed you before. Comprised past tense. But anyway, the quote that I had from when it was not dead, this would be 2017, it was still alive. This is from 2015, I think. The origin of life among the origins of life are among the great unsolved scientific problems of our age. That's what they lead with. To advance our knowledge of the processes that led to the emergence of life, Simons Foundation established the Simons Collaboration on the Origins of Life. The collaboration supports creative, innovative research on the origins of life. The assembly of the first cells, the advent of Darwinism. You never get a Darwinism without the origin of life, Darwinian evolution, and the earliest signs of life on the young Earth. In the past decade, a small number of researchers have developed a systems approach to origins of life research that connects disciplines. So I think what they're saying is we're not going to be able to figure this out by studying biology or historical biology or something like that. Connects the disciplines, technologies, and institutions in new collaborations. It is likely, why is it likely? What makes you say that? That answers to important scientific questions may come in the next decade. You have no idea. You don't have a team yet. You don't really have a pathway of research, but it's likely that answers will come in the next decade. Making this a significant moment in the changeover that results from an influx of new talent. Out with the old and in with the new. We talked about that last week. New instrumentation, new technology, I think, and a growing global community of researchers. We're going to throw numbers at it. We're going to throw numbers and technology at the problem. So we're hopeful that in the next decade, we can make some real progress on the origin of life. Well, it's been a decade. This was 2015, or it'll be a decade next year. I haven't heard that this thing has produced very much. And if I go to their website, you know, doesn't look, not a lot on here. There they are, but, you know, not a lot, to make me think that they made a lot of progress on the primary point here. So that's that. Then there's Douglas Futuyma, who wrote a book called Science on Trial, which I read in the 90s, marked up. There's a lot of hubbub about it. Are you familiar with this book? No. He's a leading edge evangelical evolutionist. He's the guy out preaching the message. Most of them are just biologists that do their job. And as far as I know, you don't need to know anything about evolution to do biology. You need to know biology. They have no such thing as a PhD in evolution that I know of, but they have a PhD in biology. And I'm not really sure what the difference is between biology and evolutionary biology. But anyway, Futuyma and another guy by the name of Richard Dawkins, who I've talked about before, he wrote a book called The Blind Watchmaker, which I've also read cover to cover. And it created a lot of hubbub, but I found them both, frankly, very disappointing. And I thought there was better material out there if you want to approach it from their side. Stephen Jay Gould, I think, has better material for this sort of thing than they did. But anyway, this is Futuyma out of his book, Why Are the Creationists Successful? I wasn't aware that we are. Where are we successful other than in churches? You know, what, government? Oh yeah, those creationists really making a lot of headway in government, scientific institutions. Why are they successful? In part because they offer simple, unambiguous, and certain answers to those who cannot live with complexity ambiguity and uncertainty, and I cannot think of a more self-flattering way to phrase the answer to that question. Bless your heart, Douglas, the way you flatter yourself, because you think ambiguously, you think in complexity with ambiguity and with uncertainty, right? Okay. Creationists have the advantage of writing roughshod over all intricacies and details. All right. So of course you wouldn't do that, Douglas. Would you write? You wouldn't write roughshod over intricacies when studying life on Earth, intricacies and complexities and so forth. Well, let's just take another quote here, right out of his same book. I don't remember where they were in the book. Take any major group of animals, and the poverty of imagination that must be ascribed to a creator becomes evident. So we'll ignore the personal attack on both the creator and the people who believe in him. For example, all the peculiarities of various modern mammals are simply modifications. Now, this is the work of a man who does not ride roughshod over complexities and intricacies, right? Are simply modifications of the structures possessed by primitive insectivorous mammals, such as hedgehogs, and these in turn are modified reptilian features. Why hedgehogs? I don't know. If you ask, what would I have to do to transform a primitive mammal into a bat or a whale? The answer is nothing very drastic. Well, that's what everybody says when they look at bats. You could be easily. So we're not riding roughshod over any intricacies or complexities here. Bats didn't evolve wings by inventing new structures. The wings are merely elongated fingers. Sure they are. That's what the experts say. Bat wings are just simply elongated fingers. But we're not riding roughshod over complexities or intricacies. One of the most amazing aspects of evolution is how easy it is to account for major transformations through rather simple changes in developmental processes, which nobody has ever been able to replicate in a scientific experiment. This easy thing to do.
Or observe.
Or observe, yeah.
Nobody's been able to observe.
Most of the differences among different kinds of mammals are quite simply accounted for by changes in the relative rates of growth of different parts of the body. Not riding roughshod over intricacies or complexities at all. Speed up the elongation of the fingers to get a bat's wing. Slow down the development of teeth or legs to reduce or eliminate them in whales. Sure. In more than 600 million years of animal evolution, without riding roughshod over complexities or intricacies in the evolution of life, there have only been a handful of truly novel features, such as the wings of insects. No mention of eyes. Just saying. Brain. Where's the brain in this? Compared to what we don't know about the brain, we don't know anything. Nothing. A little dot of knowledge about how the brain works compared to the mammoth sea that we don't know. All right, so that's enough of my not terribly sarcastic attack on Douglas Platoon.
And how does he differentiate between a whale and a human who has this intellect and reasoning ability?
He doesn't.
Addressed there at all.
He just dismisses it with relatively small changes to developmental processes. All right, that's enough. Just irritates me. He's a creationist. He is the creationist. He is the creationist of evolutionary thought. He's exactly what he caricatures of creationists. He is that. Okay. Let's get back to the nonsense in Genesis. Now that we've looked at his nonsense, let's look at our nonsense. Okay. Since I had to print my notes out, I don't know where we left off again. Somewhere around, I think we finished reading all the different versions of Genesis 6:5. The Lord was sorry that he made man on earth. Yeah, okay, that's where we are. Yeah, okay, so we're in We're in the aftermath of this, one of the strongest statements in the entire Bible. Right here. This, 4 or 5-fold, repetition, unnecessary, but extremely communicative repetition of the statement. That's how Hebrew writers did it. If they wanted to emphasize a point, they would multiply the repetition on it, and that made the point.
It's a literary tool.
Yeah.
They use.
That's the word I was looking for, phrase I was looking for, literary tool. Literary device sounds more sophisticated. I'm going with literary device.
That's good.
Okay, in the aftermath of what he's observing, we have been allowed through this inspired writer to read the mind of God as he talks to himself. The writer is watching what God sees, and he now communicates what God says to himself about what he has determined to do. Before we get to that, because I finally looked at my notes again. We have this idea, well, no, that's it right there. That statement right here, the Lord was sorry. That's more than once in the Bible. The Lord was sorry that he made man. And so it sounds like he changed his mind in some human kind of sense or something. I don't know. But the writer here is not at all uncomfortable with that sort of transposing that sort of, what's the word for that? Imputing that, giving God that kind of characteristic and you'll see other times when God changed his mind a few times.
When you get to the other part of the sentence, he was grieved in his heart, is that like repeating the first part of the sentence? Like reflecting each other?
Yeah, that's another technique that's the repetition.
Because I can understand grieved a little better than sorry. Because sorry sounds like.
Well, you still can't get around the word sorry there.
Yeah.
And it almost gives an explanation. He was sorry because he was.
Yeah, he regretted. There's no way around it. There it is. You just deal with it. You don't get out of it. You don't try to get out of it. You just deal with the text as is.
When he said Noah found grace.
All right. Yes. So there's going to be the issue. And we'll get to that in a second. We'll take it from both angles. If you assume that, if you're going to assume that God did not, this is what it would take. God did not know in advance that Adam and Eve were going to fall. That's what you have to believe, in my view, to take that interpretation to the idea of God's regret. He did something. It turns out what he did, it turns out he made a mistake, and now he has to correct the problem. So not only do you lose foreknowledge because he didn't know, you also lose omniscience. You lose omniscience because he did not know. And you lose sovereignty. And you also lose, is that the same thing as I made a mistake? I had a oopsie. We would have to have a God who does oopsies. And he does do-overs. He's a God of mulligans. Everybody know what a mulligan is? Anybody who's played golf? Mulligan is, every professional golfer, like Tiger Woods, if he had a bad tee, he would be allowed to get one mulligan on the thing. He'd be able to go and do one drive over again. Said no one ever. They don't do mulligans. They don't do mulligans on the PGA Tour. They do mulligans when I go play golf, more than once. But if and that would be the case with God, that if you take regret to be like that, you lose foreknowledge, omniscience, sovereignty, and whatever the word is for perfection in an execution sense, not in a moral sense, although I'm not sure there's a lot of difference, but you lose all of that. So if you're ever talking to a Christian who thinks this really is regret, he didn't know, I'm just enough tease out the implications of your thought pattern here. Because remember, you're stuck with the implications of what you believe, which is why argumentation is so difficult. I make a statement, and I just made a bunch of them about Fatuma and about evolution. Well, I'm stuck with a bunch of implications Well, take, for example, finding life on other planets. If I say that, human life on Earth is the only planet that has life, arguing into the void of knowledge. What are the implications of that? And that's what makes this planet special, and that's what makes humans God's special creatures. What are the implications if they find life on another planet for me in what I said? They're huge. So if we find life on other planets, and if I say that, and then we find life on other planets, the person who doesn't believe any of this is going to say, you said such and such. Well, part of the implication was that if we find life on other planets, even though I never thought of it, humans are not special. Because you said that humans are special precisely because they're the only life in the they're only higher life in the universe. So you're stuck with the implications of what you're claiming. That's the case here. If you believe that God regretted in the sense that he didn't know Adam was going to fall and he made a mistake, and now he has to correct. Now everything after the fall is damage control, plan B, ad hoc, making it up as he goes along. Because if he didn't know that, he also won't know what the consequences are of this next thing that happens. Like, for example, the promise to Abraham. He made a promise to Abraham. He couldn't guarantee Adam and Eve. If he couldn't guarantee Adam and Eve, then he's not going to be able to guarantee Abraham and the promise. So we're back to thinking on his feet. And he may be the very greatest on the feet thinker in the history of feet, but that's what's going to be required. Everything you read and see of God is after the fact. What's the word, there's other than ad hoc, when you make it up, when you're responding to the moment, like a running back running through the line. And his instinct to know there's going to be a hole over here, there's not, this person's coming this way and they're doing this at the speed of light. So I'm going to go this way because by then my blocker will have, all of those kinds of moves are on the spur of the moment, responding to the situation as it develops. That would be God.
Maybe an analogy would be a chess player.
Yeah, chess player, yeah.
Maybe that's better because responding to whatever
Human
happens
moves,
out
yes.
here. Yeah.
And chess at the speed of reality. All over the universe. That kind of thing.
And we'll get to it, but chapter 8 opens, but God remembered Noah. Did you forget about him?
Right. What does that word mean? Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll get to that in just a second.
We will, but that is another illustration where we are
And was he just lucky? Oh my goodness, look at that. There happened to have been one good one. What a lucky break. Otherwise, Noah really pulled me out of the fire because I said I was going to blot out the whole human race, and then I noticed Noah. So I had one. Whew, that's close. It sounds sarcastic. I mean, it is sarcastic, but that's the implications of that kind of thinking. And the reason that I bring it up is because there's lots of people that think like this. It's an implication, in my view, of a theology called open theism. So on the scale, maybe I should do this next week. On the moving sliding scale, you have the Calvinists, the crazy Calvinists on one side, which would be me, pretty much. Then you have variations on Calvinists, this way. I'm moving from left to right for those who can't see. All the way to the left. I don't like being on the left. I'm going to the right. The crazy Calvinists are all the way over on the right. They're the right-wing extremists in this case. And then as you move left, you get variations on Calvinists, 4-point Calvinist, 3-point Calvinist. Then
4.5.
Yeah.
There's 4.5. Then you're going to get into what are known as Arminians, which are people. If the Calvinists are the ones who believe in election, God's sovereign choice, Arminians are the ones who believe in what we could call cooperation, that man cooperates with God in his own salvation. God reaches
Free will.
Yeah, free will. Just kind of avoiding the term because it's ambiguous, but Yeah, they're gonna believe in libertarian freedoms, if we're gonna use the term. But anyway, God reaches down, but you have to take his hand. He offers the gift, but you have to take it. Even if he's not offering the gift, if you reach out, he will reach down. That would be the Arminian, way too simple-minded.
But in many cases, that is an argument we use in evangelism.
Yes, it
We
is.
receive.
Yes, it is. Campus Crusade,
Yeah,
or Crew as it's called now.
yeah.
Because
But that's,
that's the operationally, which is interesting. Bill Bright was Presbyterian.
Yeah.
And awful lot of staff, I was on staff, awful lot of staff are not in that camp at all. But anyway, yeah, there's operationally a lot of the evangelical groups that do this stuff all the time. Well, operationally, you would think that they are in this kind of Arminian cooperationist mindset. Then if you keep going over farther, the other away from the Calvinists, you're going to get to. Is there anybody between them? I don't think so. You're going to get to the open theists. Both the Arminians and the Calvinists believe in foreknowledge, that God foreknows. Now, the manner in which he foreknows is an open question, because we don't need to worry about this, but you can get into middle knowledge and so forth, knowing all possible worlds. But God foreknows the choices. This is way too, I shouldn't have done this. Forget about all it. We'll do that in the summer. We'll forget about all that. Let's just go to the open theists. The point is, both the Calvinists and the Arminians believe in some form of foreknowledge. The open theists have rejected the very idea of foreknowledge with the thought that the future is not settled even for God. God experiences the future in the same way that you do. He just experiences it with an extraordinary knowledge base. And so he achieves some kind of pseudo perfection just by virtue of how much he knows. But at the end of the day, if you believe in open theism, God's victory is not guaranteed. Can't be. God cannot know what the day of the Lord or the day of salvation will hold. He can just have a pretty good idea. All we can say about God is he probably will win. But that's open theism. The future is not settled even for God. And that's, depending on how people respond to a passage like this, you'll see them fall into these different, just sort of instinctively fall into one of these camps.
Did they not read Revelation? What?
Seems pretty clear in Revelation that he has pretty good idea. Not just has a pretty good idea, but that we have a decree.
Yeah.
We have a decree of God about his victory. Yeah. So, all right, go ahead.
Question. The word sorry, does that imply sorrow?
Regret.
But regret,
Yeah.
not sorry.
The Lord regretted that he made man on the earth. Yeah.
and it may, Sharon, not be that something happened he did not know. It was just oh man, what did he do?
Yeah, it doesn't have to.
I mean, we regret things that we've done. That's probably the biggest word I make about it. But regret something. And I'm not God, but God, oh man, what have you done?
Yeah.
How far have you gone?
There's also these anthropomorphisms
Yes.
where, to get the point across how bad the situation is, the author uses a construct that had the common point of reference that humans will understand to express the gravity of the thing. So here, that could also be it.
So we could understand his heart. How he felt.
Yes. He was
How
deeply,
grieved
deeply moved. The point is not that God made a mistake by anyone's. That's not what the author could have said something like that, but that's not what that would be what he was saying if you take that interpretation of regret. Now, the Lord made a mistake in creating man and woman, and now he's going to fix the problem by wiping them all out, but he's going to get lucky because one of them is going to turn out as a good man. Of course, God at this point apparently doesn't have all kinds of knowledge because he doesn't seem to know that that Noah's descendants are going to turn out the same way as the previous humans did.
Maybe an illustration would even be, and I say maybe, I like Gary's phrase, now that I think about it.
They're making this up. Yes.
But maybe an illustration would be John 11, Lazarus, Jesus wept. Why did he weep? As he saw the crowds, as he saw their despair, as he recognized how despondent he knew what he was going to do. And he knew that Lazarus was going to come to life, but Jesus was so touched, God is so touched by the despair of humanity at this point.
Hey, out in the feed, can you guys hear me?
Oh, yes.
Okay, it's a really slow internet, and I just want to make sure. Go ahead, I interrupted you.
No, it's more, I think, of God's, what have you guys done? You're so despaired, you had opportunity to, and it's not that I'm gonna fix it, this was part of my plan, but I'm sorry you have to go through this, I'm sorry you got to this place, I'm sorry. And we will find some of that in the Tower of Babel, once we get to Genesis chapter 11. And it's just.
I have a question just because I like numbers. Do we have any idea what the population of the world was at that point?
No,
I mean, we don't, but I mean, how many generations? Well, if we count generations, I mean,
how many kids do they have?
yeah.
What is what do you consider a generation?
When you live 900 years, you could have an awful lot of kids.
Yeah.
So this is Jesus, to Tom's point, this is Jesus, another one of those. Oh, this is his woe of Jerusalem.
Yeah.
Oh, Jerusalem, Jerusalem, the city that kills the prophets and stones those who sent to her. How often I wanted to gather your children together, just as a hen gathers her brood under her wings, and you would not have it. He will weep over Jerusalem. And he will, yeah. He's not a dispassionate, ice cold creator who's just going through the motions that have already been determined. He is deeply involved in it to an extent that no human being understands in the conduct of his universe in every aspect. You get that's a better passage than that, actually.
I think you're right, Gary, and I think even where Moses, where Noah found favor, that too can be an emotive description. Noah found grace.
No, I'm in the wrong place.
Grace and God's love, God's favor, and God's grief, and God's. I like what you said, Gary. He's not dispassionate. He's not isolated. He's not just out there. He's intimately involved.
We get angry. We have anger because we have the attribute of anger because he has the attribute of anger. We have the attribute of love because he does. Joy because he does. Sorrow because he does. He has all those things. What he doesn't have is things like greed, ambition. What would it even say that God has ambitions? It's a meaningless. What does it mean that the sovereign creator has ambitions? He has no ambitions.
And his is all based on his perfection and righteousness. Ours many times is based on our own selfish feelings and pride.
If we have received Jesus as our personal Savior, we have a personal relationship with a personal God. And people, the cults and false teachers, they're following a God that doesn't even exist, let alone be in person.
But there are some believers that have this idea that God is just out there rather than intimately involved in our lives. And God doesn't really care and understand, but he does work all things together for his glory and our good. And I really believe that's the correct sequence. His glory, it's all about his glory. Our good secondary.
Yeah.
Most times we say for our good and his glory. Nah, our good is secondary. It's all about the glory of God.
Here's Romans 8:26. In the same way, the Spirit also helps our weakness, for we do not know how to pray as we should, but the Spirit himself intercedes for us with groanings too deep for words. Sounds pretty emotional.
And 28 comes right after 26. All things work together.
Right.
It's because the Spirit's praying for us. And 27 is another one of those verses, Gary. Learning that
He who searches the hearts knows what the mind of the Spirit is, because he intercedes for the saints according to the will of God.
will of God.
So the intercession of God by God is deeply emotional and intimate and personal on a level that no human being can understand and could not express even if they could understand it, because there's no words for it. All right.
Good.
So that's where we are. I think that's the sort of the depth of not in the first place, I don't think, the grief of God over this, but the depth of the sin and the tragedy of the fall from the pristine situation that God created, that man has now found, that man has now brought upon the created order. Man did this to the creation. God did not do this. So when God blots out, as he's going to, those are the words he's going to use in a minute, when he blots out, he's not blotting out anything that's worth saving. It's a ruin. Look at the word. This word right here for corrupt, it's ruin. The earth was ruined in the sight of God. It was ruined, for all flesh had ruined their way. We'll look at translations when we get there. That's the idea. So all he's going to do is that right there. I will ruin it. Isn't that on here something? I'm about to ruin it. I think that's the same word too. If I remember right, I'm thinking from a commentary. I'm about to ruin it. They ruined it, so I'm going to ruin it. It's almost as if he's saying the ruin is not greater. There's no point keeping it. Which,
But isn't that kind of like saying too that he didn't know what was gonna happen because it did ruin? I mean, my point being, could there be something that was lost in translation somewhere along the line of the Bible being rewritten about him being sorry or something like that, or
you have the devil is in the details.
yeah,
And at this particular time, I mean it literally. He's right there in the details. And when God curses the serpent, he then goes on to the woman. I'm sorry, then when we'll get rid of it. Yeah. There's the curse. Now he turns to the woman, and there's this statement right here. I will put enmity between you and the woman. Now he's talking to the serpent. And he's thinking ahead. He's going to put enmity between him, the serpent, as a personification of evil or Satan, and the woman as a consequence of that. Thinking ahead, I will deal you a crushing blow or something like that. So he's already, before he ever says, I am sorry I made them, he's already made this statement, looking forward, way past the flood, where he says, he, the seed of the woman, will bruise you on the head, you will bruise him on the heel. But I'm going to deal you a mortal blow through the human that you corrupted. Exactly what happened. And that reaches its fulfillment in Christ himself. So in retrospect, how is it that a God who made good on that statement didn't know what was going to happen? Was that made up on the spot? Doesn't seem like it.
What was the mortal blow?
That's a great question. The corruption of mankind, the fall. The mortal blow was on Satan's plan. Satan, the serpent as personification of Satan, Satan's plan for the rule of the world. Our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the world for the forces of this present darkness. Some of you will probably remember how that's said. There's a war going on, and the war has been in continuous play since this statement, but the victory has been achieved in Christ. God wins.
The mortal blow will eventually be seen in the casting of Satan into the lake of fire at the end of the age.
When God has redeemed his people from him.
Yes.
When he's ripped a people of God out of his hands. That's what he did.
And that's what the big warfare is. I mean, you hear on the news about war between flesh and blood. There's always something greater than that all the time.
Oh, principalities, powers.
Right.
All right, let's see. Okay, so the Lord was sorry that he made man on the earth, verse 6, and he was grieved in his heart. And the Lord said, the Lord determined, I will blot out man whom I have created from the face of the land. From man to animals, to creeping things, and to birds of the sky, for I am sorry that I have made them. So it's a redundant, twice told thing. And look at the corporate solidarity. Man and everything I created with him will be destroyed. All of it. Man has ruined all of it. So I will destroy all of it. And then you have that statement packed right up against it. A statement of total destruction, total judgment backed right up against it. No space in between. But Noah found favor in the eyes of God. So the eyes of God looked down upon man in verse 5 and saw wickedness on the earth. The Lord saw that the wickedness of man was great on the earth, but those same eyes of God are upon Noah the whole time. So while he's contemplating the evil of man and the extent of the evil of man and the horror of it, and maybe that's one way of summarizing verses 5 and 6. The Lord contemplated the all-consuming evil of mankind, or something like that. While contemplating the all-consuming evil and seeing the evil of mankind on the earth, he at the same time took account of Moses. And Moses is right there in the story. Moses is right there embedded in the same passage. And so these two things are going on side by side.
You mean Moses or do you mean Noah?
Did I say Moses? Replace all the previous Moseses with Noahs.
I didn't know if you were making
Yeah.
a comparison of Noah, of
No,
Moses coming
no,
out.
I meant Noah. I've done the, when I listen to these feeds, I hear myself use the wrong words. Some time I keep going like that, and nobody ever corrects me. Yeah, there's a literary device going on here too, right? It's reversed. Let's see. Maybe not. Never mind. I don't know what I was thinking. You don't know what I'm talking about because you can't read my notes right now.
I wish there weren't paragraphs in the scripture between 8 and 9 where Noah found favor because he was a righteous man and walked with God.
He'll get to that later.
I know, but it almost disjoints it to me.
It does. Maybe it's deliberate.
Yeah, well, in my English Bible, I not only have the paragraphs between 8 and 9, I also have a heading. that is supposed to help.
Yeah, further on, he's going to say that Noah was blameless in his time.
Yeah.
Somewhere.
Well, verse 9 says that.
Oh, was it right away?
Yeah, that's why.
Yeah,
I say
blameless
I
in his time right there.
Wish there wasn't a.
He,
Found favor because.
but there is a, now we're going to start a new genealogy. we've already seen, these are the generations of Adam, and these are the generations of Shem. And these are the generations of Cain. Have we seen 3? I think so. Now we're on number 4. So he's arrived at the end of the genealogy of Shem. He arrives at Noah. So this verse 8 here closes out brackets. Where's it at? Generations of Shem. Is it down in here?
That's what it's called, generations of Cain there. Genesis 4:17 following.
I thought there was a genealogy of Shem that was, this is a book of the generation of Adam. I guess it doesn't. Anyway, there's Seth. Seth is born right here in verse 4. And then we're going to proceed through his genealogy and we're going to reach the end of it in Noah right here. And then pause on Noah. And this is in a sense all part of the Noah story. This all happens at the time of Noah. So he brings Noah back in as he closes out that genealogy. Noah comes back in and he's going to start now a record of the generations of Noah right here. And we're going to keep right on going. And generations of Noah is not going to actually go that well after the flood. It's going to start right back up again. And we'll go ahead and stop there. We'll do this one the next time. And thanks for coming. Who do I still have? Anybody hang on? Huh. Like I got him.
Thank you, Gary.
Sure thing.
Thanks, Gary.
See you guys.